Have you ever heard of a thought so powerful that in just 7 seconds it can begin to dissolve the financial scarcity in your life? Thomas Troward affirmed that there exists a point in the mind where a single idea, held with total conviction, is capable of completely altering the vibration of reality. It's not magic, it's pure mental law. The universe responds instantly to the dominant pattern of thought. And when that pattern is one of absolute abundance, even if only for a few seconds, a new cause begins to form in the invisible. Troward said that most people's error is thinking too much and feeling too little. They spend the entire day worrying about bills, debts and problems, emitting thousands of confused and contradictory thoughts. But the universe doesn't respond to quantity, but rather to the quality of thought. A single clear, firm thought felt with faith has more power than 1,000 doubtful thoughts. 7 seconds of pure consciousness are worth more than 7 hours of worry. And that's exactly what you're about to understand now. How a simple mental focus can begin to dismantle scarcity and open the doors of abundance. Thomas Troward explained that the creative power of the mind acts in short but intense cycles. He said that when a thought is maintained with total concentration for 7 seconds, it crosses the conscious plane and penetrates the subconscious, the true laboratory of creation. In that instant, the thought ceases to be an idea and becomes a vibratory cause. From there, the universe begins to silently gather the necessary circumstances to materialize what has been decreed. This is the origin of what he called the moment of mental fixation. During those few seconds, all that exists is the thought and the feeling that accompanies it. If there is faith, the command is positive. If there is fear, the command is destructive. That's why Troward warned, never hold in your mind a thought that you don't want to see realized. The subconscious is literal. It doesn't interpret, doesn't question, it simply executes. He said that in those 7 seconds of mental purity, man becomes co-creator with the divine. It's as if human consciousness and the universal mind merge into the same creative pulse. And the clearer the emotion associated with that thought, gratitude, confidence, love, the faster the universe will respond. That's why Troward taught that true prayer is not asking, it's sustaining for a few seconds the certainty that you've already been answered. Thomas Troward affirmed that scarcity doesn't begin with a lack of money, but with a lack of mental direction. Most people, he said, think in a scattered way, mixing faith and fear, hope and doubt, abundance and desperation. This constant oscillation prevents the subconscious from fixing a clear image of what must be created. The result is the financial chaos that so many live, not from lack of luck, but from an excess of contradictory thoughts. He explained that the mind is like fertile soil. If you plant different seeds every day, the soil never creates roots. The same happens with consciousness. One day it affirms, I am prosperous. The next it murmurs, nothing works out. The universe doesn't understand contradictions. It simply reflects the vibratory average of your mental pattern. That's why scarcity is the reflection of doubt. Troward said that to transform this pattern, you don't need to repeat phrases infinitely, but rather learn to sustain a single pure and firm thought. A thought of total confidence, without interference, without fear. He called this the creative moment. It's in that instant that the mind, even for just a few seconds, aligns with infinite power and gives birth to a new reality. Scarcity begins to dissolve because the cause that fed it, mental confusion, ceases to exist. Thomas Troward said that one pure thought is stronger than 1,000 mixed thoughts. He taught that the human mind was created to be a direct channel of divine intelligence, but distraction and fear fragment that power. That's why the most powerful spiritual exercise is not to think a lot, but to think with purity. A single thought, maintained with total faith and positive emotion, has enough strength to dissolve years of mental limitation. Troward explained that the subconscious reacts to the sharpness of the image, not to the insistence of repetition. When the thought is firm, the universe understands the command immediately, but when it's confused, the result is delayed, distorted, or contradictory. It's like trying to tune into a radio station while changing frequency every second. Noise replaces music. The same happens with abundance. It only flows when the mind remains on a single frequency. That's why the 7-second ritual is so powerful. It forces the mind to remain, even if for a short time, in total vibratory coherence. During those seconds, you become the conscious creator of your reality. The universe doesn't resist this clarity. It begins to reorganize immediately. As Troward said, "The universal mind is a perfect machine. Man is the one who decides what it should produce." Thomas Troward taught that scarcity is just a thought that has forgotten its own divine origin. It remains alive because the mind continues repeating the idea of lack as if it were truth. But according to him, there exists a thought that can begin to disintegrate this pattern in just a few seconds. It's simple, but it needs to be felt with total sincerity. The universe is abundant, and I am an inseparable part of it. He said that by sustaining this phrase for 7 seconds with true emotion, something changes in the vibratory field of the mind. Fear loses strength, the body relaxes, and a sensation of security begins to take form. This emotion is the signal that the subconscious recognizes as authorization to create prosperity. It's not the phrase itself that has power. It's the state of consciousness it awakens. When you feel that you're part of abundance, scarcity ceases to have space to exist. Troward explained that the universe doesn't know lack. It only knows flow. The idea of limitation exists only while the mind believes in it. But the instant consciousness aligns with the truth of the whole, that everything is already complete, the vibration of scarcity dissolves. The mind stops fighting for wealth and begins to allow it to manifest naturally. 7 seconds of unity with the infinite can erase years of mental separation. Thomas Troward said that it's not the isolated thought that creates, but the emotion that accompanies it. The thought is the seed. Emotion is the water that makes it germinate. That's why he insisted that the 7 seconds of power only produce results when the heart is involved. Thinking I am prosperous without feeling prosperity is like turning on a light without electricity. The rational mind understands the words, but the subconscious only understands vibration. He taught that the most powerful emotion for creating prosperity is anticipated gratitude. Feeling grateful before seeing the result is the purest proof of faith. During the 7-second thought, Troward recommended evoking this sensation of fullness, as if life had already responded. Joy, even silent, is the clearest sign that the mind is in harmony with the law. And when this harmony is established, money, opportunities, and resources begin to align naturally. He said that the right emotion is the universal language of the Creator. There is no resistance that survives a heart at peace. Each time you sustain for a few seconds the sensation of abundance, a new mental cell is created, a cell vibrating prosperity. Over time, these cells multiply and completely change the frequency of being. And at this new frequency, scarcity simply can no longer exist. Thomas Troward said that the mind needs practice, not haste. The power of the 7 seconds is not in a complicated ritual, but in the consistency of applying it every day. He taught that upon waking, the first image you sustain defines the vibration of the coming hours. That's why the exercise is simple. As soon as you open your eyes, take a deep breath and think with feeling. Good surrounds me, supply flows, and everything I need arrives with perfection. Sustain this thought for 7 seconds, feeling it as truth. Imagine the energy of abundance descending upon you, penetrating every cell, cleansing the mind and awakening confidence. Troward affirmed that by repeating this exercise daily, the mind begins to create new circuits of prosperity. The subconscious, previously accustomed to worry, begins to record the feeling of security. And over time, the exterior reorganizes itself to reflect this new internal order. He called this vibration training. Just as a muscle strengthens with use, faith strengthens with conscious repetition. It's not physical effort that changes life, but the mental effort of sustaining a pure idea for long enough. 7 seconds of true focus are worth more than an hour of doubt. And whoever learns to repeat this simple gesture every day will inevitably see scarcity dissolve like mist at sunrise. Thomas Troward taught that the mind is a mirror that never judges, it only reflects. It doesn't distinguish what is desired from what is feared. It only returns the image that is maintained longest. That's why when a person constantly thinks about debts, bills, and lack, they are, without realizing it, asking for more of the same. The universe doesn't understand "I don't want." It only understands "here is my focus." And where focus remains, creative power concentrates. He said that the secret of prosperity is learning to reflect abundance even in the midst of lack. The mind must be trained to sustain the image of divine order, even when the external world shows disorder. It's not reality that shapes thought, Troward said, but thought that reorganizes reality. What you maintain internally for long enough, the universe is obliged to reproduce externally. This is the law. That's why the 7-second thought is an act of faith in motion. During that time, the mind becomes a clean mirror, reflecting only good. It stops vibrating in the memories of scarcity and tunes into the flow of eternal abundance. Each time you practice this conscious focus, a layer of limitation dissolves, and the mirror of the mind returns to reflecting the perfection that always existed behind all appearances. Thomas Troward said that the human mind creates obstacles where the divine mind only sees flow. These obstacles are old beliefs, inherited ideas, unconscious fears, feelings of unworthiness. He explained that as long as a person believes that money is dirty, difficult, or dangerous, the subconscious will block its entry, not as punishment, but for coherence. The subconscious protects the mind from what it fears. That's why scarcity is often just fear disguised as protection. Troward said that the only way to dissolve this blockage is to replace it with a higher truth, the truth that money is not an enemy. It's neutral energy that takes the form of the consciousness that uses it. If the heart is pure, money becomes a channel of good. If the heart is trapped in guilt, it transforms into a burden. That's why the first step to unlocking prosperity is to reconcile emotionally with money. He recommended a simple and powerful exercise. Look at a coin or a bill and say mentally, "You are part of the divine flow. I receive you with love and release you with gratitude." This phrase, repeated with feeling, begins to cleanse the emotional record of rejection that so many people carry. And when guilt goes away, flow returns. Because according to Troward, prosperity is not a prize, it's the natural state of a mind without fear. Thomas Troward affirmed that the vibration of the mind is the invisible magnet of reality. Everything a person experiences financially, whether prosperity or scarcity, is merely the reflection of the vibratory field they sustain. That's why transformation doesn't happen by trying to change the external world, but by changing the internal frequency. And this change always begins with the thought you decide to nurture. The universe responds to the dominant vibration, not to passing intentions. He taught that the mind vibrates according to the most repeated emotions. If the predominant emotion is fear, the energy field contracts. The flow of money is interrupted. But when the predominant emotion is confidence and gratitude, the field expands, and financial flow returns to circulate. Troward said, "The universe doesn't resist the mind that vibrates in harmony with it. Harmony creates attunement, and attunement creates manifestation." The 7-second exercise serves precisely for this, to alter the dominant vibration. Each time you focus on a thought of abundance with true emotion, a new frequency is established. With repetition, this frequency becomes your natural state of being. And when prosperity becomes natural within the mind, it must also become natural outside of it. Because, as Troward taught, the exterior is merely the obedient shadow of the interior. Thomas Troward taught that the mind doesn't create money, it merely opens the path for the infinite to manifest. The substance of abundance already exists, unlimited and eternal, awaiting only a conscious channel to flow. That's why he said that man doesn't need to ask for prosperity, but to allow it to pass through him. Fear, doubt, and desperation are barriers that narrow this channel. But faith, confidence, and love keep it open, allowing the divine flow to become visible as opportunities, ideas, and resources. He explained that divine substance is intelligent and responds to the dominant mental pattern. When the mind vibrates in desperation, the flow retracts. When it vibrates in peace, it expands. That's why Troward affirmed that the first sign of prosperity is not money itself, but the internal sensation of tranquility. The serene mind is the widest channel the universe can use. He said that by sustaining 7 seconds of pure consciousness, the individual enters into direct contact with this substance. During this brief instant, the personal I falls silent, and the divine I takes command. It's at this point that brilliant ideas emerge, the right people appear, and improbable paths open up. It's not coincidence, it's infinite substance moving through the awakened mind. As Troward summarized, prosperity is the natural breathing of God through you. Thomas Troward said that every visible result is the echo of an invisible mental action. Nothing happens by chance. Every financial event is merely the reflection of a thought cultivated with sufficient intensity. He called this the invisible cause, the seed planted in the spiritual field before emerging in the physical world. That's why whoever wishes to prosper must learn to act first in the mind before acting in the world. What the mind accepts as true, the universe hurries to confirm. He explained that mental action is composed of three elements: clarity, emotion, and constancy. Clarity to define what is desired, emotion to give life to the desire, and constancy to maintain it until it manifests. Most people fail not from lack of ability, but from giving up mentally before the seed germinates. The universe needs a stable field to act, and that field is the focused and serene mind. Troward said, "The indecisive mind is like a flickering lamp. The universe waits for the light to steady before responding." During the 7-second exercise, this mental action concentrates. You become like a beam of light projected toward a single purpose, and in that instant, all the power of creation turns toward the image you sustain. When the thought is firm and the emotion is pure, the result is inevitable. The cause is planted, and the harvest is only a matter of time. Thomas Troward affirmed that the human mind creates, but it's the divine law that executes. That's why after launching a thought of prosperity, the next step is to trust and not interfere. He explained that many people block the result because they try to control the how and when of manifestations. But the universe doesn't work under pressure. It works under vibratory order. When there is anxiety, the channel closes. When there is confidence, the law acts with perfection. Troward said that the true mental creator is one who plants and releases. He fixes the thought with faith and then allows universal intelligence to take care of the rest. This surrender is not passivity, it's spiritual wisdom. Those who trust know that good is already on its way and therefore live in peace. This peace is, in fact, the sign that manifestation is near. He taught that the universe is self-sufficient. There is no effort in the blooming of a flower, nor tension in the current of a river. Everything happens with smoothness because nature follows the rhythm of law. And when the human mind aligns with this rhythm, money, business, and opportunities flow in the same way, naturally. The secret is simple. Think with faith, feel with gratitude, and then surrender with confidence. The divine law never fails. It only waits for the heart to stop doubting before it begins to act. Thomas Troward observed that prosperity is not the accumulation of money, but serenity in its presence. He said that the truly prosperous share one characteristic: they live in constant confidence. They don't chase after money. Money follows them. Because their minds are free from fear and the universe hurries to fill the space opened by faith, the spiritually rich never despair, for they know that the source of supply is infinite and is within them. Troward explained that this state of consciousness doesn't arise from blind belief, but from an exact understanding of law. He knew that the mind, when aligned with the creative principle, cannot fail. That's why he said, faith is not hoping, it's knowing. Knowing that divine substance is always present, that each need already has an answer, and that money is not an end, but an instrument of harmony. In this state, there is no anxiety, there is certainty. The truly prosperous live with lightness, because they've understood that wealth is flow, not possession. They know that the more they bless money, the more it multiplies, that the more they give, the more they receive, and that the secret is not in retaining, but in letting it circulate. Troward summarized it thus: life is like a river, try to hold it, and it dries up. Let it run, and it will sustain you forever. Being prosperous is living in this flow, where fear dies and good renews itself every day. Thomas Troward said that a single moment of true consciousness is worth more than a lifetime of effort, and perhaps these 7 seconds of focus you've learned here are the turning point of your story. Because when the mind aligns with divine flow, the impossible begins to become natural. Fear dissolves, scarcity loses meaning, and money returns to occupy the right place, that of faithful servant to the awakened mind. Wealth doesn't come from outside. It was always within, waiting to be remembered. That's why, starting today, practice the 7-second thought every morning. Sustain the image of abundance and feel it as present reality. Don't fight, just allow. Say to yourself, the universe is abundant, and I am the very expression of that abundance. Repeat with faith, with emotion, and with constancy. And observe. The doors that seemed closed will begin to open, not by miracle, but by the natural response of law. Troward said that to prosper is to remember one's own divine nature. You are not a victim of destiny. You are co-author of the plan of abundance. Every thought you sustain is a seed that the universe commits to making flourish. So think big, think clean, think with love. Because, as the Master taught, the mind that recognizes its divine origin never again fears lack. If this message touched your heart, like this video, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who also needs to awaken to this inner power. Together, we can create a current of prosperous consciousness that crosses generations and prove through experience that abundance is the natural state of those who live in harmony with